What was your first mission together as a team? Like, what were you doing in the enemy country? What was your objective? You were working as a targeter to find interesting individuals, and then Andrew, you were predominantly trying to make contact with those individuals.
Sort of. Well, because I couldn't, as the node of the cell. The node is a term that we're using to say I was the piece that was exposed to CIA. So if the mole went hunting, the mole would find me. I was the one that was exposed.
Okay.
So for me, it was important that I actually didn't meet with any of the targets that we had in Falcon. My job was to go to Falcon to start sourcing the information that she would use to identify those individuals.
Like, what does that mean?
So whether it's something stupid like a phone book or a thumb drive, whether you're picking up a dead drop from somebody else. So consider in Falcon, we would have already had other case officers carrying out operations.
Yeah.
So we might have a case officer who was able to extract information from a military database. And that military database has all the weapons engineers for Falcon's Air Force. That case officer can— That spy can collect the thumb drive.
Yeah.
And then they can put that thumb drive in what's known as a dead drop. A dead drop would be something that you hide anywhere in the country, in a city, wherever else.
Like in a bush.
Yeah, like in a bush. I would then go into Falcon, and I would go to that dead drop site, the bush.
So you go into the enemy country.
Right.
You'd go to the bush.
And take the thumb drive and bring it back by our cleansing route to Wolf, where I could give it to Jihi. Jihi could then extract the information from the thumb drive, and now she has a list of all the engineers who are part of the enemy country's Air Force. And then from there, she has a starting point for her information to start finding targets. Now, as she finds targets, that's when we tap on our case officers, James, Tasha, Luke, Beverly, and we say, here's somebody that we think would be susceptible to you because you're a middle-aged woman, you're an older man, you're a younger man, you're a younger woman, right? We think that these people might be susceptible to your interests, your backgrounds, your voice, who knows what. And we need you to target them. And then we would send those spies into Falcon to meet the targets that Jihi found.
Okay. Okay, got you.
So the game of espionage is not an easy game. It's a fun game, but it's a chess game, not a checkers game. So there's a lot of moving pieces and a lot of moving parts. And for me, it was always very exciting, but I also understand that it can be very difficult to express it well.
Was there ever a time when you felt most at risk when you were in that hostile country?
At some point, my presence in Falcon, in the enemy country, became known to the local government in the enemy country. And they dispatched a surveillance team to track me. It was a major turning point in our operation. We kind of went from a place where we felt like we were winning to a place where we wondered if we were losing. We went from a place where I felt very safe to a place where I felt like I could immediately be apprehended. And then all the worst thoughts start to creep in, not necessarily about being shot. Oftentimes, a CIA officer being shot in a foreign country is a welcome experience because being shot at least means everything ends. The worst is being captured and being interrogated and being used for diplomatic leverage and being used for policy leverage and being forced to do, into brainwashing and propaganda videos. Like, that's a much worse experience than a clean death.
You said earlier that it would have been the mole that was exposed to your presence and that knew that you were in this enemy country. So was it the mole that told the enemy country?
That's what we believe. We don't have the evidence to prove it, but what CIA's conclusion, as well as the conclusion inside of our own shadow cell, is that our operations had reached the place where they were significant enough that the mole took a risk to find out that I was the exposed member of the cell. And then the mole reported my name to the hostile country's police force.
So you're now inside that hostile country, the enemy country, and they know that you're a US spy. Was there a day when you realized that they knew that you were a spy?
Yes. Well, there wasn't a day that I realized that they knew I was CIA. There was a day that I realized they were surveilling me as if I was a threat. When any business person travels to a hostile country, they're almost always surveilled. They're Hotel rooms can be rifled through. There's people called bumbling surveillance or watchers who will usually follow you. I'm not sure what your travel looks like, but I can almost assure you that if you've traveled to Russia, if you've traveled to China, if you've traveled to Cuba, you had a watcher. You had a surveillance team.
Really?
That was watching you.
Me?
Yeah.
Why?
Because you're wealthy, you're successful, you're an influencer, you're of significance. At the very least, they want to make sure that some petty criminal doesn't hurt you in their country, because that could be a big deal.
Thank you.
But
Please continue to surveil me.
But at worst, they could also be scraping your cell phone to pull all of your contacts off the cell phone so that they could then reach out to any of the contacts that you have on your cell phone. They could scan and duplicate your hard drive as you go through secondary or go through immigration in a foreign country.
They can scan my hard drive as I go through immigration.
Absolutely. We can do that here in the United States too.
What? So if I land in the United States, how would they do that?
So there's different authorities that exist for different agencies. So here inside the United States, one of the authorities that we give to our Border Patrol is the authority to essentially scrape data off of all of your electronic devices. So if you're deemed a target of interest, and if you're moved into what's known as a secondary screening, they will separate you from your bags. They'll actually open your bags. They might even tell you to unlock your cell phone or unlock your laptop.
CIA believes that all people are born with a spy secret superpower. For some people, that means they can win deals. For others, they can spot liars. Some can even seduce lovers. I built a free 3-minute test to help reveal to you exactly what your secret hidden superpower is. All you have to do is click on the link in the description below, take the test, and start using your spy superpower to stay ahead of 99% of people.
And then from there, with technology that's proprietary and technology that's also commercially available, they can scrape and scan your hard drive.
Because I've been through security before in various countries, and sometimes when I get to the other end, there's a letter in my suitcase, and the letter in my suitcase says, "Hey, we had to go through your bags for some reason."
If you had a technical device in your bag along with that letter, there's a good chance that it was cloned.
But I didn't give them my password.
Sometimes they don't need your password.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
How are they going to get into my laptop without my password?
There's ways.
So yeah, there's password generators, there's password cracking codes. Your password is I have somebody I could call right now, and within about 30 minutes, we would probably have all of your passwords that you use for all of your devices in your personal home.
That's the end of the podcast, Andrew. Good luck with the book. Can someone pass me my phone? And this is a bit of a tangent, but it's an important one. So what devices do you guys use if you have that knowledge that it's really easy to break into devices? Do you use the same devices that I use?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I assume that if you become a target of interest, there's nothing you can do to protect yourself. So I use devices that are actually easy to crack and clone because I don't want my device to get broken. So that when the Chinese or the Russians choose to go through some backdoor on my Android system, my Android doesn't shut down. Whereas there are more complex systems like a Glacier phone, where if somebody penetrates your Glacier phone, the whole phone will shut down and you'll be without a phone.
Is there any phone or device that's safe?
I would argue the answer is no.
No. I would say no also.
Because anything that you create that claims to be safe becomes priority number one for all the adversaries out there, because they know if they can be the first ones to crack that phone or crack that hard drive or crack that operating system, then they have the competitive advantage over everybody else.
Yeah, it's possible for something to be safe for a short period of time, but eventually it's going to get cracked. They'll find the back door, they'll figure out how to open it.
And it's not just foreign intelligence that wants to do that. It's also all of your criminal syndicates. It's all of your dark web syndicates. Everybody wants to do it. So whenever I see anybody come out and promise that they got the new hardest device, I don't believe it. It might be hard, but that doesn't mean it's impossible.
Yeah, there are levels of security, but nothing is 100% secure, at least when it comes to technology. And so we just assume that it's not secure. And so you just treat your device in that way, with whatever level of security is convenient and makes you feel secure. But knowing that at any point somebody could just hack in from, they could hack in remotely. They could, scrape your drive when you're going through immigration, or if you're in a hotel room, somebody comes in. I mean, it's always possible.
They can steal your encryption key from somebody else that you are having an encrypted chat with. So they don't even have to target you.
Do you use like cold storage, i.e. do you use like a hard drive that's not connected to the internet or something?
We will air gap.
What's
air
that?
gap. Air gapping is cold storage, like what you're talking about, where you take something off the actual cloud take something off the internet and it just lives in a standalone server. Whether that's we have drives that we save our information to that are air gapped. They're not connected to the internet, not connected to a cloud. They're only connected whenever we choose to transfer information. So we'll do things like that to keep our information safe. But I think the most important thing is that if you make yourself easy to be hacked, then you'll actually get hacked less because you're not a risk. They can see what you have, they understand that you're not important, and they move on to the next target that's more clandestine or trying to hide.
Okay, so you figure out, going back to the story, you figure out that you're being surveilled. How?
Just like the whole idea of a cleansing route through a third country, that's a piece of tradecraft that has never been exposed before. I actually get to teach a number of people, I get to teach in the story how we do what's known as a surveillance detection route. So the core of surveillance detection is understanding something that we call multiple sites, multiple sightings over a period of time. So I need to see the same person, the same vehicle, the same face, the same profile. Profile meaning, tall, Caucasian male, mid-50s. I need to see the same profile several times over a period of time where I'm changing locations. So what happens inside Shadow Cell is I identify one car that follows me through multiple turns and then falls off only to come back on later on. That's kind of my first indicator that there might be something going on. So then I go through this route, a predetermined, pre-planned route through a city. And the only reason I'm doing that route is so that I can drag people along with me to see if they're going to behave like surveillance. And from that route, I find that it's not just one car, it's actually two other cars. And when I get out of my own vehicle to walk on foot, there are very specific people who then follow me on foot. And then in the third part of the surveillance detection route, I find that the same people who are following me on foot are also the people driving the cars that are following me inside vehicles. So most surveillance detection routes are executed in this very prescribed, very specific process so that you can see who's actually following you.
And you did that. You discover that there's multiple people following you in multiple vehicles.
And when you discover that, it's terrifying.
Yeah, I was going to say.
It's absolutely terrifying, but it's comforting because you know they're following you, but they don't know that you know that yet. So they still think that they're discreet. They still think that you're operationally active, meaning they're following you because they expect you to commit espionage. They're following you because they expect you to meet with a source, do a dead drop, acquire some kind of equipment that you shouldn't have, right? They're waiting for that. If they don't see that, then they don't get the evidence that they need. They don't win.
So you go straight to a strip club or something.
Exactly right. You go to a strip club, you go to a library. I went to an arcade in this book, and you go somewhere to just waste their time. Because as long as I'm collecting their information, when I come back to my friendly country and I meet with my Shadow Cell teammates, I can now tell them, this license plate is a surveillance vehicle. This profile is a surveillance vehicle. If you see a woman or a man wearing these types of clothing, this is a surveillant. Right? And now we can build a database back in Wolf that shares the surveillance team members in Falcon.
Were you scared when you figured out that you were being followed?
I was terrified. I was terrified because I had so many thoughts going through my head from how did I fuck up to what if I don't go home? I'm trying to think about what they're going to do as their next step. How long are they going to follow me before they just say fuck it and just wrap me up? Are they even going to wrap me up, meaning apprehend me, capture me? Do they already have evidence that shows that I'm committing espionage, right? I haven't committed espionage on this trip yet, but have they seen me on a previous trip doing a dead drop, retrieving a dead drop, dropping a cell phone, taking a battery? Like, what do they know? I don't know what they know. And then you've got all this panic, and at the same time, you have to recall 3.5 hours of very specific activity across a city to run an SDR.
An SDR?
A surveillance detection route. You have to recall, I turn left on Front Street, I go 2 blocks, I turn right on 22nd North, and then I turn left on an alley. You have to recall this thing that you memorized, that you worked through, and at the same time that you're having this spike of adrenaline and panic.
And you were on your own?
I was on my own for that operation.
So you go through this route through the city that is predetermined for you to go down, and presumably this particular route is designed in such a way where it gives you opportunities to expose them. You realize that you are being followed. What do you do in that exact moment?
that first moment that I realized it was true, I had this realization, this moment of fear and vulnerability where it was a moment of self-loathing where you realize that you're not as good as you think you are. And you realize that however this happened, you're the only one to blame for what comes next. In that kind of moment of humility, I actually called Jihi. In our alias identities that we had built for these operations, we had what's known as a throwaway phone or a disposable telecommunications. And I called her and I gave her a coded message to let her know that something was wrong. Because I wanted her to know that something was wrong so that she could take it back to the cell so that they could start their systems on their end to protect me if I did get arrested, if I did get wrapped up, if I did get shot.
You gave her a coded message?
Via cell phone.
What is that coded message?
I think I just called you and said I'm coming home early.
Mm-hmm.
You said you called her and said I'm coming home early.
Yeah, which is a bad sign because you would never come home early from an operation ever. So as soon as I heard he was coming home early, I knew that something was wrong.
Take me into your world at that time. The phone rings.
I get the call on my burner phone, and which was unusual anyways. I mean, I always had it because that was part of our communication plan was for us to do that when we were apart.
So a burner phone is a secondary phone that you just use for these kind of things?
That just for this. It's never used for anything else. It's not connected to a name. And that's what keeps it anonymous for us. And so he calls and he says, hey, I'm coming home early. And I'm like, okay, because you can't, if the line's being tapped, you can't be like, oh my God, what's going on? Are you okay? Because somebody's listening to it. It has to sound like we knew that his alias had a fiance. I was the fiance. So, it was totally natural for anybody listening in to hear him say, hey, I'm coming home early. So then I had to be like, oh, that's really exciting. That's great. I can't wait to see you. And he's like, okay, I love you. And then that's the end of the conversation. And that's all I get. And so after that's all I get from Andy, I go back to the office. I'm starting to scour all of our cables, go talk to James. Have you heard anything? Is anything happening?
You started to scour all of your cables?
Yeah. So, we have all of our databases, all the CIA databases. So, there's reporting that comes in all the time that you're, especially regional reporting that you're privy to. And so, I talked to James because he had more access than I did to all things Falcon. And so I was like, have you heard anything? Is there anything weird going on? And he said no. And so I started just kind of looking through all of my stuff to see, was there any reporting that was of somebody being captured or somebody, something going wrong? And there was nothing. And so Andy and I have, we created on our own it's called a combo plan, a communication plan, where, if anything ever happens, whether natural disaster or, espionage, faux pas, we had a system of communication where, I wait 8 hours and, check this fake email that we share that's not attributable. And then he gives me a sign of life. And then we have these timings, 8 hours, 12 hours, 24 hours, 48 hours, where all I need from him is a sign of life to know that he's okay. And then that also gives us the opportunity, if it were a natural disaster, for example, to put, meet me at this location.
So that's an email address that Andy emails?
Yeah. So
Close.
It's an email address that we both have a login to, and you create a draft email inside of it.
Oh, okay.
Also learned from terrorism.
Also learned from terrorism.
Yeah.
Oh, is that what terrorists do?
Yeah.
So they create a draft email, they just leave it there.
Yep.
Correct.
And someone else logs in and looks at it.
Yeah.
Correct.
So it's never sent, so it never goes over the internet really. But yeah, so we had this communication plan in place. So even though I was concerned and I couldn't find anything to discover what was happening, I knew we had this communication plan in place. So I knew that at some point he was going to give me a sign of life, and I couldn't do anything until that point.
So you've discovered that you've been discovered by this adversarial country. You call Jihi, you let her know that you're coming home early. Then what do you do?
Then I have to plan my escape. So another thing that movies don't show you is that when the first effort to escape is always self-rescue. It's always on the part of the field officer alone to try to escape. There's no Navy SEAL team. There's no evacuation helicopter. There's no high-speed boat or classy yacht just waiting for you. You have to get yourself across the country's border yourself before you can hope for any kind of evac from there, or what we call an exfil. So I knew that it was on me to come up with some evacuation plan. And I had to come up with an evacuation plan that wasn't going to let the surveillance team know that I knew I was under surveillance.
So you're still in the car at this point?
I'm in between the car and on foot, depending on where I am in the surveillance detection route, right? Surveillance detection routes generally break into 3 phases. It's in the first phase that you suspect that you're under surveillance. It's in the second phase that you confirm it. So it's in this second phase when I confirm I am absolutely under surveillance. That's when I contact Jihi, and that's when I start coming up with my own self-rescue plan.
And then the third phase?
The third phase is a collection phase. You know that you're under surveillance. You know that you've communicated to somebody that you're under surveillance. And now the mission becomes collect as much information as you can about the surveillance team before they realize that they're being collected against.
So you see this car behind you, multiple cars behind you, and the same people following you on foot. Are you writing this down, or are you just trying to memorize it?
At first, it's all memory. And we have a methodology for trying to memorize this stuff. We actually talk about this in the book as well. You start to come up with short codes to describe the people. And the codes that you come up with mean something to you, but they wouldn't mean anything if they came out in an interrogation, if they came out in writing. So like for you, I might call you black t-shirt. A black t-shirt means something to me. So if I see black t-shirt behind me 3 times in the next 45 minutes in 3 different parts of the city, I know that I have an image for what black t-shirt means. But when I write down black t-shirt, nobody else knows what that means. When I see a woman, it was cold, the season that I was carrying out these operations. I saw a woman in earmuffs, so I would call her earmuffs. I saw a guy in a bomber jacket, so I called him bomber jacket. And you just recall these people. You blue sedan, yellow SUV, right? White taxi cab. You start to come up with these nicknames that mean something to you but don't mean anything to anybody else. And then when you get back to a place where you can document your notes in detail, you have a reference point to document in detail. So I start by memorizing. When I got towards the end of my third phase of surveillance detection, I actually wrote down my notes. In the book, it explains I went into a clothing store, and then I started making notes in the clothing store. Presumably, if somebody came in and arrested me at that moment, what they would see is a bunch of notes about clothing, earmuffs and black t-shirts inside of a clothing store. That's not espionage. But then when I was able to actually get back to Wolf with my cell, then I was able to deconstruct what black t-shirt meant. Black t-shirt meant black male with a goatee, approximately 165 pounds, 5 foot, 11 inches, 38 years old.
So how did you get from phase 2 of your process of figuring out if you were being followed to the arcade? Like why did you go to the arcade?
So I went to the arcade because I was trying, in a surveillance detection route, one of the things that you're actually trying to do is called bore or lull your surveillance. You never want to, in movies, it makes it look like you're trying to ditch your surveillance team. You're trying to lose your tail. That's not what professionals do. What professionals do is we drag the tail. We keep the tail with us for as long as possible. And one of the things you do is you make yourself very predictable. You move very slowly. You hang out in public places, which makes it very easy for them to observe you. I was actually going to the arcade to try to collect more information about my surveillance team, but I was trying to give them time and space so they could observe me in a public setting. It backfired because what actually ended up happening is that when I went into the arcade, they lost me. They lost sight of me, which put them into a position where they started panicking to try to find me, even though I was just sitting inside the arcade.
I mean, it doesn't sound like it backfired if they lost you.
It's a terrible thing when they lose you, because when they lose you, they start to panic and they start to assume either they made a mistake or you're a trained officer. If you're a trained officer, if that's the conclusion that they make, they can come in and arrest you. If they lose you, then they start to make mistakes. And when a surveillance team starts to make mistakes, it means that they might stumble across you. They might have 2 different surveillance people find you at the same time. And for them, that's a scary thing, because for them, they're trying not to be identified. They're trying to be discreet. They're trying to not be seen. So when they, in this case, in the story that we share in Shadow Cell, when the surveillance team broke into a starburst means they broke ranks to try to find me in the arcade. When they broke ranks to try to find me, they presented themselves to me in the arcade face to face. And it was in that moment that I realized they know that I see them and I know that they see me. And this is bad.
You locked eyes with them.
Which you're never supposed to do.
You're never supposed to do.
You're never supposed to lock eyes with your surveillance. You're never supposed to lock eyes with anybody who's a threat ever, because that's threatening behavior, right? That's one of the reasons that people share strong eye contact with peers is a show of trust. Well, whenever you're locking eyes with somebody who's a threat, it's a sign of aggression or dominance. So whenever you're being surveilled, you never want to make eye contact with your surveillance team, because your surveillance team will see that eye contact as a threat.
When you say you sort of bumped into them in that arcade, what's the distance?
3 feet.
3 feet. And how long did you lock eyes with each other?
It felt like an eternity. In reality, it was probably 2.5 seconds.
I mean, 2.5 seconds is a long time.
Especially when you're trying not to be seen.
So recreate that moment for me. You're in the arcade pretending you're playing with games. You turn a corner.
It's horrible, man. It's a horrible story. I'm in the arcade. I think I'm doing everything right. I'm like, oh, I'm in the arcade. They watched me come in. They're probably taking a smoke break outside. They've got nothing to worry about. And I'm kind of going from game to game and spending whatever credits that I bought in the arcade. And I go to this dinosaur hunting shooting game, right? Almost like Big Buck Hunter or like Jurassic Park. And I pick up a rifle and I'm shooting at dinosaurs. And I'm just killing time. And then the fucking surveillant comes around the back of the machine looking for me. He comes around the back of the machine and he sees me and I'm holding a fucking gun. And I look at him and he looks at me. And that's when our 2.5 seconds happened. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, what just happened? Why did I just see Bomber Jacket come around my video game console and stare at me in the face? And that's when I kind of realized, oh my gosh, like the team is in panic. I can see multiple people in the team. They lost me. They're trying to find me. Bomber Jacket just found me.
What did Bomber Jacket do when he looked at you?
His jaw dropped. He went slack. Like he looked at me and he knew that he had fucked up too. And I looked at him and in my mind's eye, I was just hoping that I didn't look as stupid as he looked.
In that moment, is it true to say that you should have just looked back at the dinosaur game as fast as you possibly could?
What I should have done is I should have seen a person come around the corner and just kind of stayed in the game. That's what anybody else would have done. Anybody else would have just stayed in the game. They're focused on the game. They don't even realize there are people walking around, right? But the fact that I identified, I saw him and then looked at him, and the fact that he saw me and looked at me as two professionals on opposite sides of the playing field, we both made the same mistake. We both made the mistake of showing our recognition to our intended target.
And before we continue, you, as far as your alias was in that country, you were called Alex Hernandez, right?
Correct.
And you were running a business called Acme Commercial?
Correct.
What was Acme Commercial supposed to be doing as a company?
Acme Commercial was a company that was built to source new disposable goods from foreign countries for transport and distribution across Western countries.
And the intelligence services build a lot of fake businesses, you said.
Yes, it's the easier it is to build a business, the easier it is to collect information. So what we've discovered is that just as anybody with $127 in their pocket can create an LLC, that's about how much money it takes to start an intelligence operation.
It says that the CIA operates numerous fake companies.
The CIA also operates numerous real companies too.
Not just the CIA. I mean, every intel organization has commercial fronts. Every intel organization.
The CIA operates real companies. What does that mean?
There are real companies out there owned and operated by CIA. In-Q-Tel is one of those companies. It's an investment vehicle where CIA invests money and invests in new technology, and all the technology that goes through In-Q-Tel knows that it's going through to CIA.
Okay, that's public though, right?
Correct.
But the ones that aren't public, so the CIA will create a company, and then they will use that company to pretend to be doing something in a foreign land, basically.
But the primary mission is intelligence. This is one of the most fascinating things, not only about CIA, but about all of your first world intelligence organizations. You've heard of what's known as the black budget. The black budget is the budget of discretionary money that can be spent on military and intelligence operations that isn't tied to the taxpayer. So it's a giant pot of money that isn't tied to tax money. So where does that money come from? Part of that money comes from anytime law enforcement or intelligence agencies seize assets. We seize cryptocurrency, we seize drugs, we seize child pornography, right? When we seize that money and we use it for other operations, that's part of the black budget. The other part of the black budget is when an intelligence organization creates a business and that business turns a profit. When that business turns a profit, where does the profit go? It can't go to the case officer. That person's being paid on the US payroll. So all that profit goes into the black budget.
Do you think the CIA has some big profitable businesses that it set up as fronts that just like went really, really well?
I know it does.
Really?
I know it does. The CIA has businesses that it's set up that have gone wildly profitable. CIA also has officers that built these businesses that then were like, why the fuck am I at CIA? And then they leave CIA and they go on to run businesses instead.